Give a big clap.
That down there, because seeing expressions are important.
Okay.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so, clicker's working? We'll find out. Okay, welcome everyone. I am Kathleen McMahon, and I'm here to talk about Design System Carnival, one accessible component, many pretty masks. And, you want to double check? Yes. So, you can follow me at Resource11 on Twitter, Instagram, and GitHub. I'm going to back up for a second. My slides will be posted sometime after the talk at https://notist/resource11. So again, you can follow me at Resource11, and my clicker is fast, which is going to make Eris extremely happy, which is awesome. I'm going to back up a bit so you can learn a little bit about me. Who am I? I am an engineer, designer, and speaker, and apparently my clicker likes to click twice today. So everything is going to be fast. And I also rated flights in costume, very slowly, back of the pack, all the time. And I love lights, my cats, and collecting sand dollars. It is, everything is clicking twice today. It is just awesome. Best compressed talk. Oh, there it is. Do you mind using a mic? I don't mind using a mic because even better than that is my clicker is basically double advancing everything.
Do you want me to click it?
No, it's not that. It's when I click, I go to 2 slides.
Oh, baby, it's fine.
Yes! Anyway, so I basically love lights. I love sand dollars going, which is the Where's Waldo of the beach. And I have 2 cats, Thor and Otis. And I also collect a ridiculous amount of crystals, and my cats love to interrupt my crystal adventures. Thanks, Thor and Otis. So, I have worked on a few design systems like O'Reilly Media and Launch Darkly and Northwestern Mutual, and design systems are always the hotness. So, I am going to stay near the podium because I cannot keep on advancing twice through every single slide. But design systems are exciting, especially if you like herding kittens. There we go. Nope, maybe not. Is everything in advance? Nothing's got to advance. There we go. I will stay near the down arrow. So if you like herding kittens, a lot of these fun, a lot of moving parts. And I think design systems are a carnival. What do I mean by that? Along with, well, when I visited Venice last fall, I saw masks everywhere, and I love their beauty and their variety. Everywhere I look in Venice, in the shops, in the souvenirs, even made my own mask. And I learned that these masks have a rich history of providing access to hide people's gender identity and class. And some of the most well-known masks are the Bauta, the Moretta, the Gagna, Harlequin. And wearing these masks give you access to places and more freedom, like this parade of gondolas during the Venice Carnival, similar to a design system. When it's well-crafted, masks create a sense of consistency. So is this consistent for everyone, though? Let's talk accessibility. Our users have different needs at different times, from vision, hearing, motor, cognitive, sensory, language, and low bandwidth needs. We need to make sure we are taking care of our users. So why accessible components? Well, here's the WebAIM, 2024, typo, 2024 report, because I just updated a detail. As of February 2024, for ARIA attributes 11.8 11.8% increase in added ARIA attributes, 11.8% up, which still, it's basically quadrupled since 2019, which means 34.2% more detected errors on home pages than those without any ARIA, extra added ARIA pages present. So what does that mean? That means that our developers are trying to, they have the best intentions, but they're making the web worse, even with those best intentions. So what do we do about that? Well, the W3C has this ARIA authoring practices guide, also called APG, that has these patterns to guide us for following, to guide us to help make us do better work. And we could use that to make things like the disclosure widget. So building the disclosure widget correctly, we can use it in different ways in our design system. This pattern can be used for things like pop-ups, toggle tips, toggle searches. And now I've done talks on this, and I'm not going to go super deep because one, fast talk, and two, I've done talks on this. You can find these in my links. So I'm going to share code examples later and talk about this more in a Hive level for you. The anatomy of a disclosure widget is, wow, a button that opens and closes a container and returns focus to a button. And there is a pattern on the APG site for this disclosure show and hide pattern, similar to like details summary, or literally it is, but that is the pattern. This pattern has 3 primary keyboard interactions that you need to take care of: the spacebar, enter key, escape key, mouse clicks. Those are the 3 things that you need to take care of. If you're building this in React, you could begin with a JSX button, which under the hood renders as a button, because under the hood, a button gives you mouse clicks, enter key press, and spacebar key press for free. Thank you, browsers. And now, if you want to add ARIA support, you can not have your fonts load, but also have add your an ARIA controls attribute to add this attribute to tell Assistive Technology which ID your button is controlling. So your button will be controlling the container. You're also going to add an ARIA expanded attribute to the button to allow the button to tell Assistive Technology that it will be expanded or closed, and it's going to be talking to a container. And also adding an ARIA label, so if you have to have a more accurate button label, especially when you're doing things like icon buttons, and you need to take care when you do this, making sure that you are not breaking any rules like label and name or anything else, especially when you are doing labeling for using voice assistive technology. We also need to add state and click handlers, and apparently keep on clicking ahead for me, a ghost in the machine. Using state and click handlers, so we could use a state and click handler for toggling state, adding a default expanded state in case we have a toggle state where we want to have our widget default open, like a bank's terms of service widget. We're going to add that functionality. And we can have add that state into a toggle open function, so we can toggle our button open close. And we can pass it into an on-click event, pass that is open state to the ARIA expanded prop, pass it into that state into the is open variable, and if that's true or false, that is when we will render the children in the div. And that is the props we, in general, add to a disclosure widget. If you want to take this pattern even further, you can add things like focus management to your widget, where you can add some UX enhancements like add an escape key press. So when you close this widget, when you hit escape, the widget closes, and you manage focus right back to the button that has activated the widget. So It's not required, but it's nice. And also make sure you are testing with your users, because if you're not testing with your users, you're not really doing your users good. So you can start by creating button refs, initializing to null, and then adding a key up handler, and then checking for whether the escape or the key code of 27 is pressed. And if it is, basically set the is open state to false, and then focus the button. And then on the key up state, pass in that handler state, and then pass in the ref, and you're done. Now, also, a lot of people should handle their focus states, because a lot of people forget this. Try normalizing your focus states at the beginning, because it's important. And notice how there's an outline 0 there. If you're going to do that, always replace it with something else, because nothing is worse than removing your outline and then having nothing. So your users that are relying on an indicator of where you are in the focus, and just normalize it. Have something there so everyone will know you have a consistent look and feel for your focus states. And then you can customize here and there, for each individual component. So this is a nice pattern that you can do. Then once you have this, consistent focus state, you can do mouse click management. So you can have one widget on the page open at a time. So apparently we are consistently at 16 minutes and 37 seconds, by the way. I don't know if the clock is running, so I'm watching a clock over here, Eris, by the way. So you know. Oh, that's just the time of day. Never mind. We're perpetually at 16 minutes. 16:38. Oh, it's European time. We're military. Okay. Anyway, so we can use things for mouse click management. We're going to add some more refs. We have a ref for the content, for the container. So we're going to have another ref there, initialize it to null, and pass that into the container ref. And when we use that, if someone clicks outside, we're going to add another function. So if someone clicks outside we're going to have this function of if someone is clicking inside the modal, not the modal, it's not a modal, it's a disclosure widget. If someone is actually clicking inside the disclosure widget, and the target contains that mouse click, that widget is going to stay open. Otherwise, we're going to set the is open state to false. And we can use that listener into the use effect hook. And then we can have a listener, an add event listener for that. And also for performance benefit, remove that event listener so it's not always listening for it. And then make sure we have a cleanup function in there. And add the is open state at the end so we don't have use effect re-rendering all the time, because that would be sad. I would be sad. I would be a bad developer. So now we have that pattern. You can use that pattern for toggle tips. Notice now I'm not saying tooltips, because tooltips are different than toggle tips. Because tooltips interactivity revolves around hovering around the tooltip and maybe focusing in on the keyboard. But toggle tips can create interactive content, and they're supported by devices, touch devices and non-mouse pointers and eye trackers. So you can do something like this, and I know you could have this pattern, and I know you're going to do this instead if I give you this pattern and add in an icon. So if you do this, you can add in an icon. If you're going to add in icons, there should be either informative or decorative. But if you have an icon that's informative, you should be pairing it with descriptive text. And if it's decorative, you should be hiding the text from assistive technology. So because they don't add a significant value to your app. And how you can do that is you can add a span, and if the icon exists, you can add it something like the font awesome icon, which I love, because under the hood they have an SVG, and they prep it in a really nice way where they have an SVG and they add an ARIA hidden prop in there, and they make sure that it does not announce to screen readers at all. And then you can do a visually hidden label. You can pair that with it if you want something to announce or not. But by default, it is a decorative icon. So it's a pretty cool pattern that you can grab a font, awesome icon by default, and go to town and go up and down with your keyboard like I can do, and like drive your audience bananas. But then once you have that, you can pass in your icon into your pattern here, of whether you have what's your icon here, and whether it's an icon-only button, you can do that as well. And also have an ARIA label in there, because if you have an icon-only button, you might want to have an ARIA label support. And you can also pass in some classes if you want to style that icon-only button. And then you have your toggle tip. You pass it in, and voila, you have a toggle tip passed into your disclosure widget pattern. And then you pass in your props for, your labels, and your icon, and your button, and there it is. And the same thing where you can use some class names for some, CSS modules, and style things and go to town. And then if you just pass in a div with some widget, then you also have a nice widget going. So there's your toggle tip. Similar thing with the toggle search. With here, you could have something where you could add you could have a form with an input where you could add in something where it sends focus to that first search input, because that's a nice pattern. So when you have a form, you have an input in there with a ref, and make sure you're preventing the default action in your form. And add some targeted focus management. So notice how I have the search, when the search input right there, when I open the widget, the search input is automatically focused. It's a nice UX enhancement. It's like, why would you want to open something then have to tab right to the input? So it's nice to have when you open 5 minutes. Cool. When you have something like this open, it's just a really cool pattern to have. So when you have this, I'm going to just dive through things. You have these really nice patterns. You could add some focus ref. Woo! Apparently, everything is just clicking for me. Instead, someone else has a clicker in this room. I swear. So in a user effect, if you had, basically, in your user effect, if you wanted to do like focus management, this is what you could do. You could define a first item ref, put it in your user effect, and put a nested if. So if someone wanted a first item to be refed, put that in if your widget is open, if it has a first item ref, focus it. And then add that first item ref prop into your tuple, and you have a nice pattern. But this is where you get tricky, because then you have this really nice pattern, and then things start get tricky, because you have this nice robust pattern, and you're like, ooh, this is really nice. And you start getting patterns like this from developers, and you have to decide whether these should be links or buttons, and you're like, ooh, this is cool. What should I do here? Oh, I'm going to design these to look like links, because this is cool. But then we can start building them. So I could add some links, right? That could be nice. Let's add map some links in here. That could work. Then we could pass in an unordered list. That could work. And we could have a widget in this hamburger menu. And then instead of links, maybe now that we have this nice pattern, but this is a really cool pattern, and it's really efficient now. I'm a really cool developer, and I'm smart. How about adding buttons instead? I can also, along with links, I can add buttons into this pattern, because I already have done this work. Along with links, I can map in some buttons if I want. So instead of links, let's add in some buttons. That's sweet. Same pattern. And while I'm at it, let's add some up-down roving focus action. So I can have the up-down keyboard action, home and end. Let's add a little more functionality. Some callbacks. Kind of fun. And oh, even better, what about instead of just passing links and buttons, let's make a custom tag component so we can pass in whatever tags we want, because we're super clever and smart. I mean, why not? We could do anything, and then we could add some like menu item roles and do some like menus and all these other things, and just like do tab index management, and like we could pass in like a link and render a link, and button and render a button, and maybe we could pass in an input, and this could be really cool and really powerful. And like we could have this really fancy list, and like look at this, like like separation of concerns. Who cares? But you have like this nice list, and all this ternary magic, and hey now, we have this Uber disclosure widget now. And so we can render lists and tag props and all these other things. And it's kind of getting big. And like maybe this component's now a little bit of a bad idea. Because now, like, what pattern have we just made? Like, we were at a disclosure pattern, but now we're in a menu and menu bar pattern. We've just changed. And that just has different states and roles, right? So what are we doing? Like, whoa, that's kind of bad. It's like almost like combining Jell-O and shellfish. It's kind of bad. So chaos starts happening. Wow, a little bit more chaos. And this is what happens. And then you get a T-Rex. And apparently, almost like a carousel, but I gotta say it's not Ken Wheeler's carousel. I gotta state that out loud. He'll get very upset if I don't say that. But welcome to the chaos. Systems Carnival, everyone. So I have to say, it's a carnival. I have to say that a solution is here. The popover has arrived. From HTML, it has dropped. The popover attribute has dropped. So now all that stuff that we were doing, there is an attribute that has dropped in HTML that is stable in most of the browsers right now. So you should look at the living standard right now, where you can start adding things with a button combined with other semantic elements. So take a look at it. We're almost out of time. And so to wrap up, I want to let you know that avoid chaotic carnivals like this one. I want to give a shout out, by the way, to Hidde de Vries for the information on this. It's really cool. And Una Kravitz for work, and the Open UI group for working on this stuff. It's really great work. But also avoid chaotic carnivals like this one, because you just don't want that kind of chaos. Or you're going to get a completely different experience than you expect. But so to wrap up, design systems aren't a carnival. Users are diverse. Don't mix your masks, or you're going to get bad decisions. And design systems are always a hotness. Thank you.